part of our place value unit talked about value comparisons and looking at how numbers are different from one another. For example, if you had the number 12 and you had the number 2. These are two separate numbers, and you can look to see how they are different. Well, 12 is obviously bigger than 2. It's how much bigger? It's 10 more units bigger. Or you can do the opposite way, is that the 2 is 10 units smaller than the 12. But you can go more in depth and look at the actual numbers. Like I can look just at that 2 and say, well, how does this 2 compare to this 2? Well, in this 2 is worth 2 ones because it is in the ones chart. Again, I can draw a place value chart. That's my ones. Here's my tens. This 2 is in the ones place of my chart. This 2 is also worth 2 ones. It is in the ones place chart. So these 2's are worth the same. Both 2's are in the same place value chart. Now, if this number changed and it became 120 compared to 2 ones, again, I'm going to draw a quick ranky place value chart here. Here's my ones. Here's my tens. Here's my hundreds. Now I'm looking at the same number. I'm still looking at 2. This 2 has not changed in value. It is still worth 2 ones. But this 2 has now changed in value. It is no longer in the ones column. It is in the tens column. So this 2 is worth 2 tens, or 20 compared to 2. So these 2's are no longer worth the same. This 2 is larger. Specifically, you can go more into depth and say how much larger. Well, this 2 is 10 times larger than this 2 because 2 times 10 equals 20. So we can say something like the 2 in 120 is 10 times larger than the 2 in 2. Right? You're looking at the comparisons. We know 2 times 10 is going to give you 20. So we can think of that math, but you can also look at your place value chart that you switched over one column. And we know when you switch over one column, you're timesing by 10. Each of these columns is worth a power of 10. So no matter how big your number is, let's say your number is 1,572,113. And I want to compare it to, let's just do 33,415. Okay, looking at these two numbers, we can compare a lot of them. Let's do the 5s. So if I'm comparing this 5 to this 5, again, we're going to start by virtually picturing them in that area or that place value chart. This 5 is going to be in the ones place. So this 5 is worth 5 ones. This 5 is in the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. This 5 is worth 500,000, which is, I'm just naming what place they came in. So this is the ones place, this is the hundreds, thousands. Again, you can write that as just worth 5, and we can say that this 5 is worth 500,000. It is no longer worth 5, it is worth 500,000. So obviously this 5 is a lot bigger. It's worth a lot more. How much more? We can go in more depth and say, well, to change from this 5 into this 500,000s, what would I have to times it by? Well, count the columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 charts, so I'm going to have to times it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, 100,000, which makes perfect sense. 5 times 100,000 is equal to 500,000. So the 5 in 1,572,113 is 100,000 times larger than the 5 in 33,415. So it's 100,000 times larger. Now we're all going bigger for each of these times. We could think of it backwards as well. Comparing these same numbers, yeah, the 5 written this way, the 5 in 572,113 is 100,000 times larger, but we could also think about how it's smaller. So we can say the 5 in 33,415 is 100,000 times smaller than the 5 in 1,572,113. So we're thinking bigger, we're thinking smaller. We can also take this, instead of thinking it as 100,000 times smaller, we can think of it as a fraction. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 100,000 times smaller. So you can think about it different directions in terms of going multiplication of whole numbers. You can think of it as fractions, right? This is the 2 in 120 is 10 times larger than the 2 in 2, but the 2 in 2 is also 1/10 as large as the 2 in 120. So we know we can take our understanding of multiplication and switch it into fractions. It just flips how we're wording the problem. So we're looking at the differences between numbers as we compare their value. And really we do that by looking at where they fall in the place value chart and identifying what each one is worth. So this 5 is worth 5. This 5 is worth 500,000. And then you're comparing their difference. Which one is larger? The 500,000. By how much? By 100,000.